Only a bunch of Scandinavians could turn a dowdy, dark Sicilian saint into a beautiful, blonde, blue-eyed cult figure who shows up with an Advent wreath lit on her head and brings breakfast in bed. So how did that happen? Well, it happened in much the same way as Christianity came to the Norse countries, by assimilation. You see, the Norse were not particularly exclusive with their gods. The more the merrier. If Christianity could come through in time of war or famine, well, they were willing to be Christian, or at least add that white Christ to the pantheon of gods. And so it was with Saint Lucia. You see, the Norse had a tradition that on the winter solstice, a young woman would show up with candles, a light. Her name was similar to Lucy, in a way. She heralded that on this, the longest night of the year, the light had come. And that from that point on, well, the days would progressively get longer. She came with not only light, but with hope that the winter snows would eventually melt and the fields would blossom and flourish once again, and it would be spring. Light and hope. Very much the themes of Advent. And to top that off, there was another story told in later years about Sweden having a great famine. And on the lake one night, there came a ship laden with food. Food enough to feed the starving. And in the prow of that ship was none other than St. Lucy, adorned with a crown of light. Well, here she comes, with light and hope. I sense a wedding. Suddenly, the Norse image that came on that winter solstice and St. Lucy, they became one. The bearer of light and hope. It is a similar word that is brought by the prophets to those who were in exile in Babylon. They had been trying to sing their old songs of faith by the rivers there for almost a generation now. They were worried. Would they ever go home? Would they ever see the way things used to be? Would their children have faith? Would the faith survive? And to them the prophets come with news of light and hope. It's time to go home. Soon, even now, God is preparing a highway in the desert. And oh, what a highway. The desert is blossoming and bursting forth in bloom. Streams of water are gushing forth from the wilderness. The lion will lie down with the lamb, and a little child will lead them. The blind will see, the lame will walk. It'll be a time of great celebration, a homecoming unlike any other. I hear these words this year in a very different way than I've ever heard them before. For we have spent the past few years in exile too. The old ways have disappeared. Life has been turned upside down. We are asking those hard questions about life the way it once was, about faith, about the future. To us come those words of hope that even in the midst of a pandemic, even as we are on the edge of almost, maybe, perhaps over the worst of it, these words of hope come again with light. A new way. A new day is dawning. The darkness will give way to light, and we dare to hope. Hope not for the old traditions. They're probably gone forever. The old way of being church, of living faithful, is being changed. It is an anxious time, but an anxiety that has a hopeful twinge because we know that we're not alone in this. But even now, God is preparing the way. And oh, what a way it will be as He leads us all home once again. Home to celebrate the coming of Christ, the God in flesh. Coming home to hear those old stories and to tell them again to new generations. Coming home that we might live into this new reality, this new world, in faithfulness, in light, and in hope. Today we celebrate Saint Lucy, Santa Lucia, a bearer of light and hope in the midst of this sometimes quite dark world. A gift on these weeks before Christmas, that we might celebrate anew.